Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon once again. In this topic, this is the second part of our table, HTML table tutorial. Like we told us before, in this tutorial we'll be looking at an image in a table cell width, and also cell padding, cell spacing, table and the image, and working with graphics. I urge you to sit back and watch this lecture. If you want to know everything about table and presenting table in your HTML, I think it would be better you start from the first and watch to the third section of this video. Now, I always, before we start any tutorial, always like to remove the code we previously written, so that everything that we are showing you will be easier for you to learn. So at this point, I left this code because I will use it in future. So at this point, what we have in our code or in our design is this. I also left this table because this first opening tag of the table and its parameters, because I think it will be of use. Now we say we want to discuss the first topic is image in the table cell. Image in the table cell. Now, to discuss this topic, we will make use of the image, these images, to describe and implement our lecture. Now, when we talk about image in a table, we are simply talking about inserting image in the table cell by enclosing. We are talking about inserting image in the table cell by enclosing that image tag. That image tag that we showed us in when we were and the source of the image, when we were trying to embed image in the body of our web development. So first of all, the image comes like this. This is the image and the source. Then the source could be, let's just copy maybe the location of the image in this our platform. We have the image source to be this, and we have the image to be, let's just copy all this, or let's just put our own. First of all, let's draw the table as we want it to be. So before we start adding this image, there are things we need to know. I told us about a header of our tables. I think we did not touch it in the last section. Now, I want us to know that our table should always contain the header of each. In each cell we should have sometimes the header. Sometimes if you come to while creating a table in a Microsoft Word, it shows us example of what we want to do. At this point, let's say we want to create a table in Microsoft Word. This is a Microsoft Word environment where I want us to draw a table. To draw a table, we click on Start, and this is the table. Then you click it. This is the table that we want to draw. The table I want to draw will look like this. It will look like this, but it will have two columns. I will have two columns. Three columns and two row. 3 columns and 2 row. That is what I want to implement. So to draw something like this in our browser, what we say, just follow the rule that we use at the first instance, but in this case I want also to add the header in this browser by saying, remember I told us that the code for header says th bracket, angle bracket, close th. This is the header of our, this is where we get what we use to place a header in our table. So I can say the first header is food. I can say the first header is a food image, and the second header is you see where I say food image and the first header closed, and I come to I open the second header and place another wife's image. The third header will carry Edu's image. So at this point now, what I will do is that I will now go to next line to draw the cells of the table. And we told us that the cells of the table start with a angle bracket TR as the first row and angle bracket TD as the first column. We close the TD before we close the TR. So at this point now I can duplicate this code to make our second row, which I should say duplicate, and also I will duplicate this TD to make table header, the table columns to make our rows. I'll make our columns into 3. The same thing I will do it here. So Remember that what we want to implement is how we can easily add image in our table cell. So for us to do this, remember that we have some statements that were written in the previous tutorial, previous lecture that we did. We had some information. I want to just give us, for instance, what we say. I say welcome. I go to the second and say home, or I'll make the words and come to the last column and say welcome. I'll populate this welcome to the second row, just for us to understand, to see how our table look like. I'll populate this and save. When we go to our browser, there is no table here, but if we click, we see the type of table at this point. This is our header. We can reduce this header for it to look like header by doing what? By adding, at this point, at the header, we can add height of the header is equals to height of the header is equals to 10 pixels, or leave it at 10, and also add the same thing in other headers. A header closed here, another opening header, the second header, we add it, the third header here, we add the same stuff. Then our header become very reduce image. Sorry, we had issue here. The header reduce image. Did it not close? No, we did not open the header here. Then we say our table header is, then save, refresh. You see it is looking as a table. This is the header welcome, the header 2 welcome, the header 3. We can also add the header 1. Can also add the header 1. Also say the header 2. Can also say header 1, header 2, and also say header 3. We also say header 1. So we save. Sorry, we come to our code. We see header 1, header 2, header 3. So in this header now, the next thing we do, we want to replace this text 1 2 3 4 5 6 with all this, with these 3 images. We want to place this image at the spaces where you see this text. Remember, we are trying to implement an image in our table cell. When we talk about cell, we are talking about these positions. The first cell is this, from this wall to this wall is the first cell, second cell, and third cell. The same thing at the. So to add this image, we also go to our browser. Go to our design platform. We will now add this image. In between, let us give a space so that we will understand what we are trying to do. Now, to add this image, we are adding this image in the spaces where we see this welcome. So I want to make this thing look more, I want to make it look nice so that we will understand what we are trying to implement here. We'll always give our codes, we'll always give it room to breathe. I do the same thing in the second part, which is this side. I'll break this point, then remember, we don't need to use line break here. For the people that are asking why not use line break, we are not using line break because table is a break on its own. So at this point now, we want to add the image at this point. Remember that I told us the same thing. It is the same thing we did at this point. Adding our image at this level. So what we do now is to maybe copy this first image. Our image is in 3 sections. We will copy the first image. We'll copy the first image at this point. We'll copy this first image. Copy this first image. We should leave the link and copy the image to this level. Then we'll copy and place it in our, or let me write it with hand so that you guys will understand what we are doing, because those copying will not teach you what we are. So what we are trying to say is that we need to just the same thing we did by saying that angle bracket image source is equals to the path where our image are located. We can see the first part should be image slash food dot jpg dot jpg dot jpg, and we need to put the image parameters, which we do by saying alternate is equals to food. For the browsers that doesn't read images, always remember the syntax. Remember to put all these for our design to look, and we'll also put other parameters like width. Now, for us to include this width, there are 2 things we want to implement at this point. You know that the width of our image, you know that the width of our 3 image will be approximately 600 pixels. It should not exceed 600 pixels if we are using pixels. Otherwise, if we are using percentage, our table should be in 100%, and the internal cell of the table that will contain the image will be approximately 100% each. We can decide to make each one 75, 70, but all will be approximately 100%. So when we say that, I will say the width is equals to, let's say the width of our image is equals to how do we put this in this 600, 150, 150. We can say 150 pixels is the width of our image. Let it be quoted, and then we'll also say that our height is equals to maybe 90. Also, we should declare maybe the border. We should declare maybe the border of our image. We can say border is equals to 2 pixels solid black. Remember, I like using color code. Then at this point we have finished including the parameter of our image. Then I close the image. We have included the first image. Now I hope you understand what we did here. I will not go waste time by writing everything handy. Rather, I will copy and replace. I'll copy and replace this. Our design should come like this. I'll copy and replace. I'll replace at this point. So we want to add images on our browser. Now, for me to give a different image, I will say the second image is wife birthday. wifebirthday.jpg, and the third image is CEOW. You remember these are images, so this thing should be images, because that is the path where these images, where those images are stored. So at this point we can easily save and refresh. You see that we have, sorry, we did not change these ones. We did not change these last ones, which should be, second one should be wife birthday. and the third one should be CEO W. We'll save and refresh. You see, this one was not rightly declared. Wife birthday. Save, and it will give us what we are looking for. You see how this thing is looking? You see how it is looking? All our text, or our text are started from the left side, the way it is, or in default text starts from the left, and this is how our design look. But if you look at this design, you see that, for instance, let me expand this so that you understand. We say let this thing be 800. Let it be 800. Then 800 divided by 3. Let's say 200 is 4. 200. 250, 255. You say 200 is 6. Okay, 900. Let's leave it in 900. Then we'll divide this by 300. Then this is 300, and this is 300. So when we save and go to our browser, you see that the image has taken, okay, the first image I did not do that in let the height be equals to or closer to the image to what we have in our site. Our height here is 200. Let also the height be the height should also take let's just leave our height like that at 100 or 90, or let's leave it at 90. We're coming because we want to do something, so we also change at this point. We have 300 at this point. What we are doing is to make sure that our image or text are fitting into our the text or image fits in our table, a size of our table. And that is why if you add 300 into 3, you give us this 900. Remember, I told us that for us to make this our table, for different browser to render the display in a normal form, we should always consider the width of our table when we are designing the cell. So when we save, all this image we take, it will be perfected. But there are something I want us to see here. You look at when we scale this browser, this image are fixed. They are not moving. The browser is not scaling with the image. I hope you know. I have told us the reason of this. So image is fixed at a certain point. So to solve this problem, we should change all this percentage. This 90 pixels should be changed to percentage, and we know that the percentage should be either 100 is from 100% down, and as we are changing it to the percentage, will also affect this area. If we leave it like this, it will display, but that is not the right way to do it. For instance, what we are trying to say is that we can change this thing to 100%, and our design will look like this. You see, it's still not sketching with the percentage is not there. It should be with 100%. Now at this point, you see that this image is moving, but it gets to a point because we have not worked on our second. This one is still fixed. We need to at least reduce this to 100%. We either put it to 50% or 100%. If you use 100%, that means all of them will be equal to the percentage of our table size. At this point, I will copy, replace this. I'll copy and replace this. I'll copy and replace this. Then we'll save. We'll go back and click. You see the beauty of it, that it has taken the size of our table, and they are sketching, we are scaling this thing with the browser. So the browser has 100% image, and if you can look at it, if you also change this thing to this place to 50%, for instance, for the browser to sketch, we also change here. We can also change here, or we can easily leave it to sketch to 100%. Let the image be 100%. Our cells, we can leave it to be sketch. To the internal image to cover our cell. When you say let the cell be 100%, it means that it should be 100%. The image should cover all the cells. If you make it 50%, for instance, if you change 1 to 10 or 50%, it means it should not cover every. Look at it now. This image is 50% this cell, but if you say let it be 100%, that means you are telling it to cover all the holes or all the containers. So this is how we add images to our browser. Look at how this thing looks like. You see how beautiful the images are. Now this could be like this. We can decide to remove the borders that we have this image. This image can become an information whereby if somebody click on, it will take us to a different website. It might be a descriptive image that shows us what we are looking for. If somebody is looking for Chinedu or looking for Edu, he click on the image, it will take him to the where information about Edu is. So, but that should be coming. We will discuss it maybe in the next topic. Now, like we said, this image, we can say, let this object, let this border be removed. For us to remove the border, we make this our table. We make it 0. We make the border to be 0 at this point and save. We go to our, you see, this image doesn't have, this table doesn't have any border again, except the border of the image. The border the image carries, that is what you are. And because it is 100%, you see that they are lapped together. We can say, let this be 100% here, so that you see they also lap together. But we can use pixels. We can say, let it be 600 pixels, so that the lapping and also act on this area. Instead of having this to be percentage, we can say let it be 250. Let it be 22 watts. 2250 is no. Let it be 22, or let it be 190. 190. 190. 190. 190. Any question you can ask in any of this lecture, any part you don't understand, you can ask your question in our commenting, in the comment area. We will reply you immediately. You see, we are having now a different, we can also create a margin here. We are having different images. At this point, we are having different images. You see that the image has a different, different sections. At this point, you can as well change this to maybe 70%. Then this will move and become 70%. We can say let the height also increase. Let the height be 200. Sorry, not here, 90. This is the image. We can say let the height here increase to 500. We save, and you see we're getting somewhere. You see how this thing look now. So at this point, we can remember these are the headers. These are the headers. At this point, this can become an information, and this can become an information. This can also become an information. If you look at this thing, you see how they are sketching. They are scaling with the browser. They scale. The more the browser moves, the more they go. They separate, go apart. So that is that in adding image. Any question you want to ask here, you can ask, because we are going into another. Now, the next thing we have on our list is cell. We just finished adding image, cell width. In a cell width, what we are just trying to say is that in a cell width, we are trying to make you understand this. For instance, we say this is our table. Let me reduce this height so that let the height be 100. And yes, the part be 50%, so that now we want to see how we can at this point we want to see how we can create cell width, which can be columns, different columns. And to do this, we use, for instance, we can say the table is existing. We can say that our TR, we are not writing table again because everything is now in table. We are not writing header again because we don't want to use header. We can say TR and close TR, that is table row. Inside the table row we have table column, which is TD. Then we close the table row. We populate this by copying and pasting. Also populate this one into 2 because we want to show us something. We want to see what the cell, how the cell function. So we can include here, we say let here be the top left and here be right, here be right top, then here should be bottom, here should be left bottom, and here should be right bottom. So looking at what we have here, you go back to our browser, you see that there is no cell. We don't have any cell at this point, but I will give this thing a line break so that I give this design a line break. I give it a line break. Give it a line break so that they will give each other chance. So that they will give each other what? A line break. Oh, sorry, I'm doing this thing inside a table. Sorry, don't be offended. I'm doing it inside the same table. I should have a different table. I should have a different table. I should have a different table. This table should close. This table should close. That table should close, then open another table. Sorry, don't be offended. I was trying to. So the table should close. It's a different table. Then we have our next table. We have our next table. We have our next table. But this table doesn't have any. It doesn't have any. Our next table, bracket, table. This table, did you close? You closed. Then why are you now giving us line break? Line break. Line break. This table, don't do what you are not supposed to. Sorry. Then you save. Okay, I've gotten what I wanted. I wanted to give a space from this. So at this point, you see what we have here. Left bottom, right bottom. But we need to place in our table, we need to place a border. Border equals to 1. We can put, and we say, we can say that the height, we can say the width, we can say the width, we can say the width of our, okay, do we need width? We can say the width is equals to 400. And the height is equals to 100. When we control save, we go to our, you see we are getting somewhere. Now at this point, we have not determined size for these two cells. Only what we have is the size of the table. We have not determined the size of the first row, or the size of the two of the cells in the first row. Remember, when you determine the size of this first row, you don't need to also determine the second size. So in this case, we will say for us to determine this size, for us to determine the size of each of these, we will encircle, or we will put the size or the width, we will put the size on the TD. And just like what we did here, if we are determining the size of each of them, it should be equal to this size of the whole table width, like just what we did before. If we want to determine the size of each of these cells, we will approximately make the size to be equal to these 400 pixels. So at that point, we can say let the width of this side become, the width is equals to 260, and the second width is equals to 400 plus 140. You understand what we are doing here? 140, and 140 plus 260 will give us 400. Then we save and go to our browser. You see we have, this is 260 and 140 cell spacing. So at this point, we have covered the cell spacing. We've discussed about the cell spacing before when we were talking about the percentage and the pixels. It is very, very important that you know this and you understand it, because it will make you scale, or it make your object inside your cells to look how you want it to be. We can also say, sorry for this, we can also say let's have a space without any text or image at this point. To do this, we don't just leave this code, we don't just leave this place empty, this right top or left top empty. We don't just leave the right top or left bottom. You see what we did, that immediately we put this width, the second row just take a correction from the first row. So you don't need to continue putting everything here, because this thing has covered, the design you put here has covered everything. So what I'm trying to say is this, like if we are trying to keep this thing empty, or to make this table empty without putting anything inside, I am saying that we should not just leave it empty like this without writing something on it. Sometimes it doesn't work. Why it is working like this is because this one is holding it, has given it the space. But what of if we don't have anything inside? How do you think that this thing will look like in a situation whereby we don't have anything inside? How do you think that our code will look like? You see, it look nice, I guess. But some browser will not render this thing like this. It is because the syntax of this Chrome is designed to render it like this. Some browser will not render it. Then what I am trying to say is that for us to create an empty space inside our table, we'll always enter the space definition, which is and NBSP. It can be one space, or we can double the space however we want. We can put the space however we want. Remember that this code should come in between the TD tags. It will come in between the opening tags of TD and the closing tag. Opening tag of TD and the closing tag. So that is it. At this point, our empty space are created. So we are now talking about the cell padding. In cell padding, we are just saying that you can specify the two other important size parameter for your table cells. So to create a cell padding, we say that our cell padding is where we set the text of the image inside our table to a position we want it to be. We set the image or the text in our table to a position where we want it to be. And cell spacing is the distance between the inner and outer cell. It is the space between the inner cell and the outer part of our table. This cell padding, the cell spacing always take 2 as the default. Until you change it, it will never give you the perfect position as you want it. I know this lecture is a very lengthy lecture. I want to cut this lecture here so that we will discuss more in this. The video will be up to 4 videos now. We will discuss cell padding, cell spacing, table and the image, and we'll discuss it in the next. Thank you for watching the video, and make sure you practice what you just learned. I want to leave this hour to have some codes inside, or just leave it like that. Let us go to our next video.